It's the only person
below
White Holiday in the
ComicsGate
Founder.
It's my favorite
It's my favorite player to play on the
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to WyzGyz Entertainment. This is your host, Wyman. And what the? Welcome, Christine Venner. This wasn't here 20 seconds ago, only just popped up. Yeah, I had things on the schedule, and then sometimes the promotion happens at the last minute. I got off of work later than anticipated, and that's why. Yes. Scene. We are joined today by our special guest, Justin Murphy. And you are literally on the cusp of reaching your initial flexible goal of 10 grand. That's freaking awesome.
Yeah, thanks. It's been quite a journey. So far, what, 50 days? Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I've been at this 50 days.
Wow.
It's not including the 6 months of gathering email addresses before I launched, of course, which is something I always stress, or I've heard stressed, and I will second that. You better spend a good 6 months planning your campaign before you launch. You shouldn't just launch, because surprisingly, you don't even usually get half. At least in my experience, half your email list, you're lucky if you get 50% of them to actually pledge. Yeah, you can collect hundreds of emails, but it doesn't mean that when you launch, they're all gonna jump in. Sometimes it's just people who are interested and want to look at it or considering it, but definitely don't assume that the email list alone is going to carry you, because I did not find that to be the case, honestly.
So did you find the mailing list pretty helpful? The fact that you were able to gather all kinds of email addresses to update everyone on the progress and, get everyone hyped up for the launch?
Oh yeah. I definitely recommend it. I do think that it's smart what other campaigners are doing, where they go on live streams to talk about their launch. See, I didn't go on live streams till after I launched. Whereas I know a lot of them will go on and talk about the launch and gather emails that way. And that seems.
Did you freeze? You still there? Uh-oh. You look like a static image there. Test, test, test. Am I frozen? Or is Professor Murf frozen? While we wait for... there must be some kind of lag or something. My internet appears to be okay. I don't see any red lights. While we wait for this to clear up, Christine says, well, glad to see you here, Wise and Professor Murf. Beyond Time, welcome. Hey, WyzGyz, Professor Murf and Christine. Uh-oh. He popped out. Maybe I'll wait until he comes back before I continue reading. But yeah, I'm seeing there's a lot of discussion about how... Jeez. I see some discussion that you guys are just now hearing about this campaign for the first time and just recently backed it earlier this week. Yeah, I had him on once before. Hello, there you are. All right.
Internet's acting up tonight. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was wondering.
Those forces of darkness that have been holding me back from my goal. See, they sense that I'm getting close, and they're like, "No, you're not. It's not going to happen."
The dark side shrouds, casts a shroud.
Yep.
Yeah. So let's see here. I'm gonna catch up on chat here. Glad to see you. Hellos all around. Excuse me. Christine says, "This is so weird to me. This campaign should have been well funded by now."
Well, I mean, yeah, but you got to remember this, Christine. I wasn't offering T-shirts. I wasn't offering hats. I wasn't offering all the swag and stuff that a lot of other campaigns offer to help pad their numbers. This is just book sales. $10,000 in book sales. That's really it. I mean, other than some posters and a few motion comic, I'm really not offering anything else. So when you think of it that way, and you think of also my low price point, it's substantial.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
But I appreciate you saying
that. Welcome Beyond Time. I just learned about it this week and backed it that day.
Thanks, Beyond Time. Appreciate it.
You're on carbon freeze mode.
Yeah, Boba Fett was knocking on my door.
Oh dear. Welcome, Frog G. Yeah,
Hail, Froggy G. I saw you earlier today. You're on another stream.
Yeah, these guys are really cool people and very big supporters of these projects.
Well, and what makes me excited is once I hit 10, which obviously I'm going to. I mean, I've got 10 days left, and I only need $325. It'll probably happen in the next 48 hours. I'll be able to go in demand and keep campaign. So it's my goal was to hit that 10,000. I knew 10,000 was going to be ambitious, especially who's new to the ComicsGate crowd. And mission accomplished.
Yeah.
I can't complain.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. And you came up with the 10,000 flexible goal because you were factoring in things like shipping and cost of materials and.
Yeah, honestly, the biggest cost is my colorist. Printing's not that, it really isn't that expensive at these low numbers, and shipping really isn't that bad either. It's really the colors, because I pay him competitive, professional industry rates. He's not working, a discount or entry level.
Right.
He's a seasoned colorist. He's been working for 25 years.
Hey, that's nice.
Yeah, and I mean, and you get what you pay for in that situation. So that's really what the bulk of my cost is getting colors done. To be honest with you.
And if I remember, were you doing the pencils and the inks?
Yeah, I do everything else. So the only person I'm paying is the colorist.
All right,
that's really it. So and honestly, I do the colors too if I had time, but I just don't. Did
it take you long to find the colorist of your? Excuse me, your desired colorist, or do you already?
No, he worked with me on my graphic novel Claiborne back in 2008, and it was a 200-page book. So we've had tons of practice us working together, right? Like he knows I can be a pain because I'm big into historical accuracy. So like I'll send him back all sorts of notes like the brown of this musket has to be this color and that button is brass. It's not that's not a metal, that's not a pewter button, that's a brass button, and like things like coat colors and everything in the uniforms. So he knows what to look for and he knows what I'm going to do, and he's just as he prioritizes that stuff just as much as I do. Like he wants it to be, so we really see eye to eye. It's a great collaboration. So that's why I could trust him, and go into something like this knowing that he's going to deliver what I want.
Right. That's really awesome to, have such a good working relationship and that trust that you described. That's pretty darn cool. And when it comes to like being historically accurate and you're talking about colors and things, do you guys literally break out a Pantone color wheel or something?
No,
Yeah.
what I'll usually do is I'll send him reference photos, or not photos, but paintings of like if it's a certain British uniform or French uniform or a flag, I'll just send him a reference pic, and then he'll use those as his starting point. With regards to the monsters and things like that, like this is a wolf, this is a gator. I mean, it's pretty common sense. Just the gator
Right.
shaded green, and but where I really direct him the most is if I say, like, for example, in this shot, I said I want all cools in the background, cool colors, cool tones. I want Diani and blues, but then I want to accent with the warm highlights. So, and then of course he came up with the sort of the purplish figures in the foreground, which I really liked the way he did that. He gelled the figures in the foreground. The complementary colors. When you get the warms and the cools on the opposite side of the wheel, it's electric. Things look, things pop. They look exciting.
Oh, yeah.
So there's, color theory is important when directing your colorist, because you want to sort of give them some sort of idea what you're going for.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of colorists have color theory, knowledge anyways, but there's lots of different ways you could color a scene, as you know.
Sure.
It could be monochromatic. It could be, everything could be very sort of local color, or stuff could be impacted by what's around it, whether it's like a campfire or an explosion or whatever, moonlight. So he's really good at that. It just really works.
Yeah, you can definitely tell. Excuse me. Christine welcomes you back. That's true. Just couldn't believe it didn't fly. Such a great and hugely affordable books.
Give it time, Christine. It might be my next campaign. Honestly, it might be a follow-up, War Party Part 2 graphic novel follow-up that I'll do. That might be the one that flies, so to speak. And then these books will actually be sought after. They'll increase in value because you'll have a bigger customer base and you'll have a tiny print run. So there's the bright side there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Going to quickly share the stream on phone, so be right back. Thank you
thanks.
so much. Appreciate it.
Well, that was fast.
I just love the art and colors on your book. The colors work so well with the art.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah, Kyle Ritter. It's funny you say that because I do. There are similarities I feel in the way they color. I mean, Kyle's considered one of the best in the business, and he is. But yeah, I do see some similarities to like the way Graveyard Shift, some of the colors in Graveyard Shift or Cyber Frog. Yeah, he's like I said, I have no complaints. I'm fortunate that I've worked with him for years, and I go out and hunt for a colorist.
Yeah. That's got to be kind of a pain having to find someone new. But if you already have a working relationship with someone who's done a great job for you, then yeah, why not keep working with them?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Excuse me, sorry. Oh yeah, please do a follow-up. Your story is exactly the stuff I like.
Yeah, I will. Don't worry. His name is James Brown, not the singer. But he goes by J Brown, like J. Brown is how he's always credited. That's how I credited him on Clayburn. That's how I'm going to credit him here. He's worked for Marvel for years. He worked for Jim Shooter when Jim Shooter was with Valiant back in the 90s. He colors G.I. Joe currently or he's one of the colors for G.I. Joe for IDW.
Oh.
Yeah, so I mean he's very well seasoned colorist.
Very nice.
And Preston Acevedo is finishing up a painting of Diani the Shaman. That'll be out in a few days. I'm adding that to the campaign, and I'm going to sell some prints of that as well.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
That's going to be awesome. I really like Preston Acevedo's work.
Yeah, great.
Christine says, thanks for that info.
You are welcome, Christine. Anything you want, I will give you. Because you're one of my best backers. Just state it. It's yours.
Let's go ahead and play this video.
Everything changed when war reached the Americas. Caught between the French and the British, my family paid the price. Only my darling Sarah survived. They took her away. We couldn't save them, but we will save her. 5 men against thousands, how can it be done? We are not merely men. War has brought out the beast in us all. And we will have our vengeance, for we are the War Party.
That's really nice.
Got a little Last of the Mohicans. Great soundtrack.
Yeah, and as usual, I love your logo.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, there was already a moon in the logo long before I was working on a werewolf book, so it just kind of worked out that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Simple but effective.
Yeah. It also makes me, it's also kind of a throwback for me, at least, to the old arcade game called Rampart.
Oh, yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah, it was actually a take on, a little bit of a take on Defiance logo. Do you remember that logo?
Sounds familiar.
It was, actually, I think that wasn't that Jim Shooter's publishing company when he left Marvel? Defiant? I think it was. It had like a tower, a black tower with a window in it up in the sky. So it's kind of like that. I mean, it had kind of the, sort of the, what do they call it? Is it crinoline? What do they call it on the ramparts? Those little, I can't remember what it's called.
I don't know the term. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of similar to that, but I kind of took that as my inspiration.
Oh, he's really awesome. Yeah.
Talking about Preston. Yeah, that's when we were talking about Preston.
I love this trailer. I love the way the viewpoint moves through the image. Very 3D.
Yeah, that's called multiplaning, where you cut out different sections of the image, and then when you pan, you position one closer to the camera. It's an animation technique. So when the camera moves, this layer goes by faster than this layer.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So it's like when you're driving down the road and you look out at the trees, and the trees closest to you are going by really fast, but the ones far away are doing this.
Right.
It's going like this. It creates that three-dimensional kind of effect. It's a real easy way to do that without actually having to do any real animation.
Oh, really? Oh, damn.
Like the motion comic will be that way. There's a lot of shots in the motion comic where I pan across a panel or something, and the figures are going to move like that.
Doesn't it require you have like the image of the character separate from the background?
Yes. Right. So what you have to do is when you cut out the character or the tree or whatever is in front that's moving, obviously you're going to have a gap there behind them because there's no artwork there. So you have to use either a clone stamp tool or copy paste like the grass and fill in, or the sky and fill in behind them, so that when they move, there's something there. Yeah. So that's the most time consuming part, is doing the fill in, which is why in the motion comic, I don't do it in every panel. I pick certain moments to where I want to, go all out. And then other times I'll just, just show a panel if it's just a close up or something. You're not going to do that, obviously. So you're just trying to make it as cinematic as possible. But that's my add-on perk. That's a $10 add-on perk. It's done fairly well. A lot of people have sprung for it.
For sure.
But it'll be the full 6 issues in motion comic form, like a little mini movie.
Awesome. Christine agrees it's really effective.
Yeah, I like it. I think it adds some dimension. It doesn't look.
Yeah, it's a cool trailer. I mean, it tells you the story, and I like voiceovers. You made this trailer, didn't you?
Yeah, because I'm an animator. I mean, that's what I've been doing for the past 10 years is animating my film Dogtown. And, I love comics, though, for many reasons, mainly because it's a different style, obviously. When you're drawing animation, you can't do this kind of detail. It has to be very simplistic, especially hand-drawn. But also, comics are cheap. I mean, to make this into a movie or even animated or otherwise would be, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. But to do it in a comic, it's a few thousand and your labor, and that's it. So it's the cheapest way to tell a visual story without having to, break the bank, so to speak.
Oh, yeah, seriously. And so you did that animated scene where the wolf beast is...
where the face... that was hand-drawn. That was frame by frame. 12 drawings a second, shot on twos, because 24 frames a second is film speed generally. So what you do is you draw 12 drawings every second, shoot each drawing twice. Sometimes you'll do it on ones where you draw every single frame, but generally that's not necessary unless it's a fast action. So things like the face transforming, I was able to hold on twos and do 12 drawings a second.
Yeah, because it's like the human eye doesn't
register.
Text.
No.
It doesn't register.
Most Disney movies were shot on twos. I mean, or they would do two. They would alternate twos and ones. Like it'd be two and then a one, and the two and a one. Yeah. So it could be anywhere from 12 to 18 or 20 drawings a second. Sometimes as many as 24. But I teach animation at Florida School of the Arts.
Oh, cool.
I have to teach my students about twos and ones and in betweening and all that sort of stuff.
In what sort of application would you have the need to do a combination of twos and ones?
Well, it's not that the application dictates it. It's the animation. In other words, it's just a general principle of hand-drawn animation. See, CG is all on ones because the computer is interpolating the movement, right? So if you keyframe a hand here and then it does this, the computer is going to fill in from here to here, right? Now you're gonna have to go in and tweak it, like if you want to move on an arc rather than do this. If you want to come out and then in, so you gotta keyframe like that. But when you're drawing it, you have to draw your keys, right? And then you do your breakdowns between them, and then you do your in betweens between the keys and the breakdowns to smooth it out. And so when I say 24 frames a second, if this is 1/1000, that's 24 frames, right?
Right.
Frame one. Frame 24, and somewhere in the middle, frame 12 will be, out here, so to speak, boom, boom, boom. So 1/1000 if it's an even move. So that's, it's just a matter of style and budget will dictate it. Walt Disney went to twos because he was going bankrupt doing ones, doing everything on ones. It's twice the work. You're paying twice the ink and painters, twice the colorists, twice the cleanup artists, twice the cells, twice the time for the animators. So he was able to cut his production budget in half by going to twos. So he started doing that with things like films like Dumbo and his Jungle Book movies or films like that. He went back to doing twos.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh yeah, it's a lot more work than it appears at first. Welcome, Armand Strange. Good to have you. Hello. Anyone here in the chat? Hey there, Armand Strange. And then, everybody back this book is freaking awesome. Very high quality. And excuse me. Oh, hi. It looked like you were talking to someone, but their site is gone. Maybe you were talking to someone in the stream. Professor Murf momentarily had an internet connection issue. So that might have been where you came in.
Yeah, I'm back, Armand.
Yep.
Of course, that looks fairly recent. I've been here for a while, so.
Yeah, that's true, too.
Interesting.
I wonder if maybe Armand's having some internet issues as well.
Mm-hmm.
Never can tell sometimes.
I told you, the forces of darkness. I'm only $325 away. You think they're going to make it easy? Nothing's been easy so far with this campaign.
is part of some master plan. Someone's pulling the strings.
Mm.
Yeah, it would be freaking awesome if we can get him to 10,000 tonight. You never can tell. It's freaking.
Let's aim low. Let's say 9,700. Can we get to 9,700 before
Yeah,
I leave this stream?
Let's shoot for 9,700. That sounds reasonable.
Yeah, that's one pledge.
Yeah, there you go.
No, I mean, I'm not worried about hitting the goal at this point. Obviously, it would be silly to worry about it. But, I mean, it'd be great to hit it sooner rather than later. But I still have a week and a half left. $325 is nothing. It's pocket change at this point. So, no, I'm just relieved that it's like you've been running a marathon and you see, just on the horizon, you see that finish line.
Yep.
And you just got to put one foot in front of the other. You're going to cross it, and you're going to cross it in time before the buzzer runs out, you know?
Oh, heck yeah.
So, and it's good because, I mean, it'll grow and in demand like so many other campaigns do. I know a lot of campaigns make more money in demand, leave them up.
Yeah. On some campaigns, it earns another 10 to 20,000.
Yeah, so I mean that's not out of the realm of possibility, especially if I keep promoting it while I'm working on it over the next several months.
Oh, heck
and
yeah.
People get their books. That's a big, I'll obviously give it a big boost.
Oh, yeah. Once they see people, once they see the book being fulfilled,
right.
It goes a long way in alleviating concerns.
Yeah, so I'm very happy. I mean, yeah, I think it could have done more if I had had more promotion early on. I probably could have hit closer to 15 or who knows, maybe even 20 if it had gotten a lot more promotion early. But it just took a long time to sort of get the steam going. It was a very slow burn. Like I said last time, it just kept moving forward. Like I've been consistently on page 1 or page 2 of Indiegogo throughout this entire campaign. It's never dropped lower than page 2 or 3. That's it.
That's nice. Good job.
Yeah. And I mean, that's amazing to me, but it's because it's been so consistent. It's never really had like a huge slump for too long. It just kept moving forward and gaining backers. So it was interesting to see that because I would always check and see like, where am I, on the pages. There's a ton of projects.
I know.
It just goes forever. It's so crowded right now.
It is indeed. Yeah, I mean, if you compare the number of ComicsGate projects out there today versus even a year ago,
yeah,
it seems like it's at least 4 times the amount. There are so many.
Yeah, Christine, you're right. People seem to sit on the fence until something is funded, and then they wait until it's in demand. Yeah, I agree. I mean, fortunately, I'm close enough now that any reasonable person that sees it knows that this is going to happen. It's going to get funded. I mean, when you're this close, you're talking this amount of money, it's a no-brainer at this point. So hopefully that will, as I say, I know the initial resistance. People thought the books are too cheap. Yeah, I had to make my rebuttal video about the books being too cheap. But what's funny, Christine, is half of the people in that video, in that conversation, that were calling out the book for being too cheap are now backers. So I won over most of my critics. Most, not all, but most, probably about 75% of them. So,
well, yeah. I mean, even when I'm kind of critical about a campaign, saying you could have asked for more, I would end up backing it too. So like, it's no different here.
Well, and a lot of the concern, I think, was people just were like, how's he going to deliver this for the price? That was their fear.
Oh,
and I had to alleviate the fear by saying, I've been dealing with Diamond for 25 years, and I've never gotten cover price for anything. You get 40%. So what are you talking about? I'm not giving this to you for 40%. I'm giving it to you for the cover price. I'm getting more money now for this book than I've ever gotten on anything I've ever published. Yeah, so I don't care what other people are charging for their books. That's irrelevant to me. What's relevant to me is what does this cost, and what would this cost in a store? What is the retail price?
Right.
Am I getting that full price? Yes. There's no problem. Because I used to get 40%. So,
Yeah, you're coming at it from a different perspective.
Right.
other creators might. And Christine did point out Armand may want to change it from live chat to from top chat, because YouTube does default everything to top chat, and it doesn't show all the comments. On my channel, since we're still quite small, there's usually not so much so much in the way of top chat, because there's not always a lot of activity going on. But people are often listening and putting this on in the background, so that's really cool. Let's see. Yeah, that's what it was. It looked too good to be true.
That's what George Travelos said. He's like, is this too good to be true? We just kept going on and on. Because I have questions, I have concerns, I have questions. And he's one of my backers now. So, it's funny, and Michael Bancroft was the first one to ever have me on a stream. He was talking about originally that, some people price their books too low, and this was one of the ones he had mentioned. But, people just wanted to know what my perspective was and where I was coming from. And once they heard it,
right,
they weren't worried anymore. I mean, no one's talking about that anymore, honestly. That was only in the first couple weeks of the campaign, and then it went away. Yeah. Now I think it's just more a point of whether or not this is something people are interested in. Topic-wise, like, is this the type of art they like or the type of story they like? Some people may not like something that takes place in the 1750s. They don't care what it is. So, you're not going to get everybody, onto your book. You're going to get people that find the concept interesting or the artwork appealing, Oh,
yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, that was one of the questions I had, the pricing and everything, during your first visit here. And as soon as I heard your perspective, it all made sense. Everything felt like this.
And I mean, honestly, it was always strange to me, like people like new comic skaters that were funding books or who hadn't ever done a book before or hadn't crowdfunded anything before, and they were trying to charge the same rates that like Ethan was charging or John Malin was and I'm going, you're not Ethan, you're not John Malin, no offense.
Right.
I don't think you are justified in charging a premium for what you're selling like they are. Right. Because you're not in their class, and that's just the reality. It's not to be insulting, but you're not. So and I didn't see myself that way, even though I've been publishing since '92. Most people in ComicsGate didn't know who I was when I started this thing. So I wasn't comfortable coming out and going, hey guys, I'm going to charge, $25 for a 64-page book. I wasn't going to do that. I mean, my graphic novel was 200 pages and was $24.95. That's what I charged for. Full color, glossy. It weighs a pound. It literally weighs a pound, the book.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's $24.95 for 200 pages. I'm not about to charge $24.95, or at least I wasn't when I launched, for 64 or what, So if you're talking 140 page, if this were a graphic novel instead of a 6-issue series, and it was a 140 page novel, based on that pricing system, I would have had to charge like $100 for the book or $100 for the book for a 140 page book. That's ridiculous. Like, I would never do that. And honestly, I don't think anybody would pay for that unless it was a hardback. So it just didn't make sense to me to come out charging those kind of prices. So I was like, look, I'm going to do floppies. I want to do floppies. I want to do miniseries. I want to do good old-fashioned floppy comic books, saddle stitch with 2 staples, and do it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me see. Nope, that was just really early on. Haven't had to point anyone to your vid in weeks.
Oh, the one about the rebuttal, yeah. Yeah, that pretty much put an end to that discussion. Well, it was good. I was glad they brought it up because it gave me an opportunity to address concerns. Because if they were thinking that, other people were probably thinking that, but weren't voicing it. So it helped me to know, what people were thinking.
Indeed. Yeah, absolutely. Uh, let's see. So this is these are a few still images. You get a good shot of all the beasts in the war party.
Yeah, that's the poster art right there. That was actually the only traditional piece that I actually produced for this, because that's the only traditional piece you can buy. Everything else is digital.
Yeah, yeah.
And I actually, these pages I don't think were on here the last time I was on your channel, so these are new.
Yeah, I don't recognize this one. Oh,
yeah, that's the trans where the pelt consumes the wearer.
Yeah, that I remember that. That's a hella trippy idea.
Yeah, it was in black and white, I think, the last time I was on your channel. So
yeah,
James had gotten the colors done since then.
I mean, that's freaking crazy.
Yeah, you have to wear the pelt to transform.
Yeah, I love that idea. I love that idea.
It's based on the skinwalker concept, you know, where they would wear the skins of animals.
Oh man.
Grizzly bear, of course, is the strongest in the group because, you know, grizzlies are some of the strongest creatures on the planet.
Oh,
in terms of strength. Yeah.
Now, with him having intense strength, I mean, does that mean that it kind of compensates for maybe he doesn't have the highest intellect?
They still have their mental faculties when they're in the beast. So however intelligent they are as a human being, they maintain that intelligence and the personality in beast mode, so to speak. The difference is whatever infirmities or injuries you may have in your human form are healed. So like, for example, the wolf character, all of his fingers on his right hand were hacked off by a tomahawk. So when he transforms into the wolf, his fingers, he grows his fingers back out. He has his fingers back. Transforms back into the human form, they go back to nubs. so you know, if you're missing your legs, you're going to grow them back when you're in beast mode, but then when you go back to your human form, they're gone again. So it creates a little bit of a desire maybe to be in that form a little more, especially not only does it make you stronger and more powerful, but it also, you know, will fix things that might be wrong with you in your human form. And, you know, it's because there's a healing property in Diane's power, because she regenerates her cells. She's kind of like Wolverine. I made her that way where, you know, 100 years, she lives 100 years and she may age 5 years in 100 years, our time. So she will be able to live through multiple centuries throughout American history beyond this point, and have assemble other war parties in different time periods for different objectives, whatever that mission or objective may be. Obviously, the objective in this is to rescue his daughter, who's been abducted, his little girl that's been taken. I could have her in the Civil War. I could have her in the Old West. I could have her, you know, in 1970s New York. You know, I mean, wherever I want to take her, I can take her, and depending on who's in the story, the people in that story, that's, you know, she's sort of the through line, right? She's the one consistent character, kind of like Quantum Leap. You know, if you think about Scott Bakula's character, he's the one through line, but every episode is not only in a different time period, but that episode is about the people in that specific time period that he's trying to help them solve some kind of problem, right? That's kind of how I see where I can take this with her. It allows her to time travel without having a time machine, so to speak. The time machine is her body, her ability to age very slowly. Because in Florida, there's a big, you know, I live in Jacksonville, not far from St. Augustine. The whole Fountain of Youth, you know, is big down here, you know, with Ponce de Leon coming to Florida and looking for the Fountain of Youth and all. You know, what is the Fountain of Youth? What was the legend based on? And I was kind of exploring that with her. Whatever the Fountain of Youth is, she has discovered it, Now, it doesn't make her immortal, but it slows the aging process so that she can live multiple generations. So, it makes her a very powerful character, but it also allows me to take her to different time periods and have different war parties, depending on the book.
Oh, that's pretty sweet. I'm loving it. I'm living it, I say. Christine says, looks amazing in color. Was brilliant as black and white. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I use a lot of blacks. I spot my blacks real heavily as much as possible because to me, art should, for the most part, not always, but I think art should look as clear as possible in black and white before you color it. I try to make everything clear and readable before giving it to the colorist, and not just relying on the colorist to separate stuff so that we can see what the heck's going on. Because I want clarity, and comics use black ink like no other medium, right? Paintings don't really use it. Paintings all values of colors. Comics puts values of colors, but then it hits it with this solid mass of black. It's the only medium that really does that. So using those shadows in that way is important. I mean, if you look at the Michael Golden cover, he did it even more than I did. You can see the heavy shadows on the bodies of the warriors, and on the eagle, he has more areas in black shadow than he does in light in that picture. So it's a very striking way to ink. It's a total opposite of what manga does, because manga doesn't use shading at all. Manga, it's all outlines, thin outlines, and it uses either color or gradients to separate it. But this is almost kind of a Western way to do comics. The heavy darks.
Indeed. Christine says, that's such a great idea, so you can go into any period, any place you want.
Any period after the 1750s, yes, because this all happens around that time period. So obviously, up until the 1750s, she aged normally, because she's roughly in her early 20s when this book takes place. So obviously, I couldn't go back to ancient Rome or the ancient Mayans or Aztecs or whatever. I couldn't do that, or even go back to the 1600s with her. But I can go anywhere from the 1750s forward, and there's obviously a lot of opportunity. I mean, the West would be great. Obviously, the Wild Civil War would be awesome. A lot of people don't realize, but many Native American tribes fought in the Civil War, specifically for the South, because they hated the federal government. So they sided with the Confederacy because they hated the Yankees. But yeah, so I mean, especially out west, I mean, you had whole battalions of Cherokee Confederates and Choctaws and things. So there's lots of opportunities to take her through these different periods. And actually, the end of this series, there's an epilogue in the last issue, and she is in another time period. I'm not going to say where, but that's where I leave it hanging, so to speak. So the story does wrap up, but I put a little tag on the end. I guess kind of like what you'd see at the end of a Marvel movie once the credits have rolled, that kind of tag, and she's somewhere else. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, I see what's going on. So, and that'll open up. Yes, Michael Golden is amazing beyond time. He's one of my favorite. He probably is my favorite comic artist ever. Him, Bernie Wrightson, and Brian Boland. Those are my favorites. But ever since reading the Nam back in the 80s, the Vietnam comic book series Marvel did, Michael Golden did the art for that. He did G.I. Joe. His G.I. Joe was great. Loved his G.I. Joe.
Do you happen to recall roughly what series of the G.I. Joe books he worked on?
It was mid 80s. He did a lot of issues. Snake Eyes History. I remember that one was great. We talked about how he was lost his, or got burned or whatever, blown up in the face and everything, and how he lost his voice and everything.
Was that the one where the entire book was no dialogue whatsoever?
I can't remember if there was no dialogue. There were sections that didn't have dialogue, but he was basically, I think someone was telling Scarlet the story, because Scarlet and Snake Eyes had a thing.
Yeah.
And she was being told the story about what happened to him. And it was one he did where he and Storm Shadow were fighting on a subway train. I mean, there were some great ones. And it was funny because I was only 10 years old, 11 years old reading these comics. I had no idea who Michael Golden was at the time. All I knew was I loved the way those books looked. I didn't know why. And the G.I. Joe yearbook that he did, I didn't know why they looked so. There was something about his art that jumped out to me that no other Marvel artists were doing. Because this was even before McFarlane became really big. And I just pulled to his work all the time. And I figured out what it is. Number one, his attention to detail. He's big on accuracy. Like, he gets the guns right, he gets the vehicles right, he gets uniforms. He doesn't skimp on the details, but he also puts a cartoony spin on everything. At least he used to. He doesn't do it as much as he used to, but he would take something realistic and twist it, like give it a little bit of a bend or something, and it would look like it was in motion. Like, he'd do that with the vehicles in G.I. Joe. Like, he'd draw a tank turning a corner, and he'd bend the tank. like the tank would bend slightly like it was made out of rubber. And you would think that would be ridiculous and that wouldn't work, but it did.
Right.
It was very strange how he would do that.
I really loved G.I. Joe, the comic book in the 80s. That's when I was collecting.
Yeah, when Larry Hama had it under his helm. Yeah, he was. Yeah, it was a comic that never should have been as good as it was. Just meant to be a supplement to the toy line. Nobody wanted to do it. Larry Hama took it on, and he went and got Michael Golden, and they turned it into a great read by itself. You didn't even need to have the toys,
Oh yeah, it was enjoyable. I had a lot of fun with the book. Let's see here. And oh yeah, what was your inspiration for the time period you chose to start at? 1750s?
Yeah. Honestly, if it wasn't for the movie, I cite Last of the Mohicans a lot. If it wasn't for that movie, I read The Deerslayer in high school, which is another James Fenimore Cooper story about that same time period. But that movie really just was so well done. And I just love the wild, no rules atmosphere of frontier America pre-colonial, like pre-revolution. When outside of the loose colonies, there really was no rules. There were no rules. I mean, you had French and British troops warring with each other, and you had tribes all over North America warring with each other and some siding with the French, some siding with the British, and then you had settlers and colonials sort of trapped in the middle. And it's just, to me, it just seemed like a great backdrop for something like this. And you bring in the whole skinwalker myth with Native Americans, and you can do things in a time period like that with no cell phones and technology and all that you can't do today, right? It wouldn't be plausible. There's too much awareness, like there's too much connectivity, right? I mean, back then something could happen out in the Ohio wilderness and somebody in Virginia would know nothing about it.
Yeah.
They'd never even hear about it. So, it's like being in another world, just a couple states over. So to me, more opportunities, because you're not bound by this hyper-connected world we live in now where, I mean, prime example, Die Hard couldn't even work today because we have cell phones and GPS and all. Think about Die Hard. He's running around trying to call the police, call the fire. He has to set off the fire alarm to get people to come to the building, right? To get the You see what I mean? You couldn't write Die Hard today. Cell phones have ruined horror movies. So many horror movies would not work now because you have a cell phone. So what do they have to do? Either they have to, I don't got getting any service. Well, how many times are we going to write that in a script, right? Or you know what I mean? So it sucks. Like to write today sucks. because everybody knows everything. There's cameras everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, the only thing you can write today is the dystopia. You know, Big Brother watching you. I mean, that's what you write now. You know, but see, 90s and 80s and before, you had freedom because everything wasn't so connected. So as far as I'm concerned, I'll probably always write things in the past. And when I mean things like the 80s, 90s, and before. Because once you get into the turn of the last century, all that starts to kind of disintegrate a little bit with regards to story.
Oh, yeah.
It's tricky.
Now, Christine says, I only learned about that Fountain of Youth legend from
Well, yeah, I mean, well, Christine's British, right? I think, from what I understand. I think she lives in the UK.
I believe.
Yeah, so I mean, that's an American thing. So yeah, you probably wouldn't hear about the the Fountain of Youth that much. And honestly, the fact that I live in Florida I've probably heard about it more than most other people in the rest of the United States because we're in Florida, right? I mean, it's part of the culture, history, heritage here.
Yeah, I would have to agree because you don't hear anyone talking about it here in Ohio.
No, and it's a cool legend, and it's one I wanted to work into this because to me it's obviously a plot device where I can explain her semi-immortality, so to speak, because this whole thing is based on what we thought were legends actually were based in some kind of fact. In other words, skinwalkers, people turning into beasts, now regarded as legend, but guess what? Here it is, it's happened. You're right. So Fountain of Youth, now regarded as legend, but guess what? She found it, and it's allowed her to live, a prolonged life. So I was trying to take some of those things and just, maneuver them in the story to support the plot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a type of comic art I really love. Bold with heavy blacks.
Yeah. Frank Miller does it a lot, obviously. Mike Mignola does it a lot. But there's other artists that don't do it at all. They rely on the colorist, and their art still looks just as great. It's just a different approach. But of that, when you can do that with inking.
Yeah, I think everyone is pretty much in agreement that Michael Golden is amazing.
Yeah, he is. His style's changed a little over the years, but I mean, it's still great. But my favorite stuff is, I feel like he was at his peak in the late '80s, mid to late '80s, when he was doing some of his most, I don't know, just his work seems really inspired. When he was doing Bucky O'Hare, and G.I. Joe and Venom and books like that. Just pure genius in some of those books.
Take it easy, Eric. Good night.
Good night, Eric.
Beyond Time says, like the Avengers Annual number 10 comic that we talked about earlier this week. Can't remember what show it was.
Yeah, I think it was Rage Golden Eagle, because I was on his stream for 4.5 hours one night.
Oh, you were? Oh my gosh! Right on.
Yeah, it. That's part of the reason why I'm gonna hit my goal is that stream was highly profitable. Let me tell you.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, Raging Golden Eagle is a hell of a channel to be on.
Yeah, so that was that really gave me a boost. But yeah, I mean, it's been, like I said, I've learned some things. Obviously, promote your launch, which is important. As much as you can before you launch. Promote your pre-launch page, so to speak, which I didn't do that enough. So I would definitely do that again in the future. Having celebrity covers, it definitely helps give you credibility. I don't know if it raises enough money to justify the cost, though, I will say. I love having Michael Golden. It was a bucket list thing for me to have him do a cover for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I definitely am glad I did it. But would the campaign have not been successful without it? No, I still think it would have succeeded whether I had hired him to do a cover or not, to be honest with you. So I think celebrity covers are not necessarily needed. There's something that if you want to do it, it's great to do it, and it's fun to have someone who you admire be on your book.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah.
I don't think you have to have it to have a successful campaign. I really don't.
Yeah, I mean, if the IP you've created is solid enough, then it's
Right.
going to draw people's interest.
Right.
It's Christine says it's why historically set stories are so great. People had to rely on their skills and wits to survive. Yeah, that's totally. I agree with that.
Right.
That's the worst cop out line.
Right.
No,
I can't get service. Right. I mean, we have to. You can't have a horror movie if you can call somebody or call the police right away. You can't. So
I suddenly found a charging cable. All right, we're good.
Keeping some ideas for heroes is a rip. Yeah, it's almost impossible. That's why Marvel movies have given up on it. I mean, Tony Stark takes his helmet off, and Spider-Man, everybody knows who he is. Superman, nobody buys it. You put on some glasses, and all of a sudden they can't recognize you. Nobody buys that stuff anymore. So my challenge with this is, how do I make these events take place without it having an impact on American history? Because I don't want to screw up history, right? In other words, the British are still going to win. There's still going to be a revolution. America's going to be the same America it is today. So what I had to do with this is pretty much anybody that witnesses these events killed, or it goes down in legend. In other words, they're not believed. Okay,
Right.
Kind of like people that see Bigfoot and they like people go, So that's the only way you could handle something like this, because otherwise you're going to run into the Back to the Future problem of diverting history to something else, and then you can't put it in our world later on because our world would be different, right? So my goal is not to change American history with this, because that wouldn't be any fun. I wouldn't want to do that. So I'm having to be careful about how I plan these events out in the story so that they can be buried into myth and legend and not go down in the history books, so to speak.
Yeah, because your story doesn't involve time travel at all, right?
Right. No, I mean, no. This just very slow aging as far as my lead character. That's it.
Yeah, I like that take. Yeah, she is in the UK. Yep.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah, I remember Beyond Time. You were asking which stream it was that I had talked about Avengers, and it was that one. Did you bring it up? I remember who brought it up. Maybe Rage brought it up. I don't know. But yeah, I want to go buy that thing now because I forgot about that. Honestly, when he mentioned it, I was like, man, I forgot about that book. I would get that book just to see the art again. The Avengers book that Michael Golden worked on. I found these recently. I didn't even know they existed. They had re-released the Nom in black and white in magazine form, like Savage Sword of Conan size.
Oh my god!
But they did it in black and white, so you could appreciate his amazing artwork without that horrible newsprint color, with ruining. You know what I mean? Like ruining everything.
Seriously.
I mean, look at how beautiful it is in black and white.
Yeah.
Love it. It's so good.
Yeah.
Michael Golden's just great. It's just, see what I mean about the cartoony though? See how cartoony that guy's face is. But you believe it. Like you believe. I mean, the M60 is accurate, but his face is cartoony, right? I mean, there's a cartoony vibe about it.
Yeah. And
Love how he does that.
Yeah.
It's not easy to do.
Christine says Peter Parker wouldn't have made any money.
Yeah, good point.
Everyone, their aunt would have photos on their phones.
Exactly. See, I mean, that's what I mean. This is not fun anymore, guys. The world, for writers, the world is today doesn't work. You got to go backward. You have to. At least in my opinion, you do. Unless you come up with something that's written around, like I said, Big Brother, or about these problems, about being surveilled all the time. What are you going to write about?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It just Go to the past. That is my first answer. You want to make your world immediately interesting? Go to the past. Even if it's just 50 years, go to the past. It will automatically become more interesting because it's so different than the world we live in now.
Yeah. Beyond Time says black and white Nom looks amazing.
It's great, and they did like all of the Michael Golden issues that way. There's several of them, and they put like 3 or 4 issues in one magazine, so you get like or 2 or 3 issues. I think it's 2 issues. It's 2 issues per magazine, so it's like 44 pages per magazine.
That's pretty sweet. I should see if I can find it. Find those.
You can get them on Amazon. I've found them on Amazon.
So how many magazine issues did it turn out to be? I mean,
he only did like the first 15 issues.
Oh, okay, all right.
And then once he was gone, I quit reading the book. You can't follow him. The artist they had after him just couldn't deliver what he was. I mean, how are you going to follow the guy?
Right.
I mean, you're not. I'm sorry. I don't care who you are. It's not going to work. So I quit reading it. I lost all interest in the book once he left, unfortunately. But, he did a good year, about a year and a half run on it. It was like 15, 16 issues, something like that.
Mm.
And they wrapped up all the characters that were in the first draft, I guess. I mean, the first ones that got drafted from the beginning of the issue, they wrapped them up in that first year. And then they brought in new characters. And, of course, I wasn't interested in the new characters once they had a new artist. So I just stuck with that initial storyline and then quit reading it.
Oh, all right. So it was the other artist that turned you off to the later.
He was not up to Golden standard at all. Like, I mean, as far as like following up somebody like Golden, I can't think of anybody who would have been good for that, who would have matched his. Maybe Brian Boland, but it wouldn't have been cartoony. It would have been a lot more realistic looking and stiffer, because Brian Boland's great, but his stuff is not. It's not cartoony. You know what I mean? Not really. I mean, his Joker was exaggerated, but you know what I mean. His style's not a sort of an exaggerated figure. His stuff is pretty much proportionate and realistic. So I can't think of anybody at the time that would have been good to follow up. Michael Golden on that. I just can't.
Christine said you could write a story that takes place after a global EMP is
it's wiped out. A Road Warrior. Yeah, a Road Warrior story. Yeah, where everything. Well, I mean, look at even like Road Warrior, the movie Road Warrior. When it came out, why was it interesting? Because gasoline was valuable. And it was you had gone back to basically warring tribes. It was almost like you'd gone back to 3000 BC or something, but with cars and guns, right? But still a world just as wild as it had been pre-technology. That's why it's interesting. That's why Road Warrior works as a movie.
If I remember that Kevin Costner movie Waterworld.
Road Warrior on water.
Yeah.
Too bad that wasn't better, because that was actually kind of a cool idea. It could have been a much better movie if it had a better script. Right. I like the concept. I never saw The Postman. I know that was another one he did that was like apocalyptic kind of.
Oh, I never saw that either.
Yeah, that was supposed to be like a post-World War III, I think.
Right.
But it came out not long after Waterworld, and I think everybody was such a bad taste in people's mouth at that point that nobody went to see The Postman.
Yeah, I can believe it. Yeah, the Golden.
Yeah. Oh yes, Beyond Time, John Byrne. I would agree with you. Yes, good call. He could have handled it, definitely. John Byrne could have. That's very interesting. I would have liked to seen John Byrne on the Nom. That'd have been kind of cool. I would have kept reading it then. Yeah, but that's what I mean. Listing like one of the top A-list artists of all time. I mean, how many of those are there?
Right.
So,
for sure. All post-apocalyptic films work because there's no tech.
Yeah. Tech can be a destroyer of good drama. I mean, it's really hard. I admire people who can write things in our time period today and make it work, because I think it's very difficult to do. It just isn't as interesting to me, because there's a simplicity to the past that allows the characters to be front and center and not the technology, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And in this, people are fighting with black powder muskets, flintlock muskets, bows and arrows, spears, and cannons. That's it. And horses.
Yeah.
That's all they've got, and there's not even fully automatic weapons yet.
Right.
So to me, that's more dramatically interesting. It just is.
When it comes to, on these images, when it comes to doing the background, like the forest and stuff, do you actually do any kind of line work in there, or do you just leave it as really rough, goofy
I do a silhouette. I might imply little bumps of trees here and there, and then the colorist just goes in and decides, what textures they want to put. And so yeah, I leave it pretty empty. Now, he does interesting things with the skies, because sometimes I'll draw loose clouds, and he'll just get rid of them and put almost like a photographic sky in there. And I'm always like, okay, you need to blur it more. It looks too photographic. Blur it more. So I don't know what's going on, but the colorists love to use real skies now for some reason. Michael Gold. Well, I don't know. They look like almost like paintings or photographs.
Yeah, I was gonna say they look so freaking realistic. They're beautiful.
But Michael Golden did the same thing on his, and I went in there and blurred it more, because I was like, this is too, it looks too realistic. So there's something going on with colorists right now, where they all want to use real skies instead of just drawing cloud. You know what I mean? Like drawing out line work on clouds. So sometimes we'll compromise on that, and sometimes like with the bear one, I liked it. I liked the way the sun, because I told him I wanted the sun going down. I liked the way it looked, so I left it alone. Same thing with Michael Golden's. But usually I prefer to actually have the clouds drawn, with lines, and then just go in and paint. So they're a little more cartoony.
Yeah.
I think it sits it sits with the art a little bit better. But at the same time, I mean, like I said, I like both approaches, but I have noticed that that's become a popular thing with colorists in the last, I don't know, 5 or 10 years. Yeah,
I just kept staring at these skies and was trying to figure out how on earth they pulled this off.
Yeah, I mean, they could be painted, they could be photographs that have been manipulated. I don't know. I'm tempted to think they're photographs that have been manipulated and then painted, which is fine. I mean, it's if you own the photograph, if they took, you have a catalog of skies that you've taken with your camera or whatever. It's definitely it's a style, it's a thing, it's an approach, and I like the way it looked on these covers, so I let it go.
Yeah, I really like it. Let's see here. It's kind of bombed. I did see it years ago, but it didn't make much of an impression. All I can remember is he was trying to keep the postal service alive.
Okay. So he was a postman, literally.
Yeah, literally.
So the sequel never got made. The UPS man, that one never came out. It was supposed to, and then there was going to be the FedEx man. There was going to be a trilogy, and it never happened. I think the FedEx man was Castaway, because he crashed on the island.
That's true. It was so much product placement. It's like, if you ship with FedEx, then if you happen to crash land on a deserted island, then
we're still going to get the package to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Delivered it.
Yeah, even to the extent we'll even get you a buddy to hang out with.
Right.
Oh my gosh, that would be so funny if they made it into a trilogy. Yeah, he's too perfect when doing this, guys. Yeah, the UPS man, the FedEx man. Oh man, That's a crack up. I never even thought of that. I don't know why. Oh man. But that's great. Yeah, I love the artwork. I love man, you're so good.
Thanks.
And you got the blacks in there.
Yeah, you can see in that cover on the left, the clouds, what I'm talking about. Those are the more traditional clouds. Those are actually drawn and a little more cartoony.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
He painted them to make them look like clouds, but they still have a little that cartoony vibe. That's generally the approach I like to take with skies.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, that's what I'm used to doing.
Right.
Yeah, actually make them look like drawn clouds. Yeah, man, the art on this is unbelievable. You're so good. And I like
years
Wichita.
of practice, man. Drawn since I was a child. I love what he did with the purples there too. Just making those figures pop out.
Oh yeah. I mean, that was a really good way to take it, because I mean, I'm nowhere near as skilled in this area, coloring and stuff like that, and I probably would have just used the regular colors of how they look normally, but it wouldn't make them pop or anything. They'd kind of like blend in to the background, which is what you don't want.
Well, and he flats them. He had them flatted the colors that they were, because their uniforms are gray with blue trim, the French. But then he gelled. He gels over the local color with the purple, so they blend. So he's not just coloring them shades of purple. He's coloring them the local color that they are, and then he's gelling over it another layer.
Oh.
You see, because if you look closely, you can see like on their cuffs are blue, and you can see there's a differentiation. Yeah, you see like in hair color, there's a differentiation. You can see some of the gold trim on their hats along the brim of the hat. Yeah, so, and even the flag is orange, green, and white with yellow little.
I forget what
so,
the
name. So it's on there. It's there.
That is a trip. I would never have caught that. This is like the type of work that, when you get the book in your hands, you just stare at it.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, in print, it's going to look even better because, the preview windows on Indiegogo really aren't that great. So you don't even really see all the detail, honestly, that you see in print.
Yeah, you have to. Oh man. So on the finished product, when the book is made, what kind of pages are you using?
I'm going to do satin on the interior. I don't want super gloss on the interior, but I don't want to do newsprint either. I have had people suggest I should at least talk to Pete about doing newsprint. I haven't seen newsprint lately, so I don't know. The colors in this book are very rich.
Yeah.
And my fear with newsprint is there might be too much bleed. So satin would be good. Glossy cover, satin interior. Because satin's kind of has like a mild gloss. It's not flat like newsprint, but it's not super shiny either.
Yeah,
it's
like
just in the middle.
Gloss.
Yeah, and it's that generally looks good with this type of artwork because you don't get a glare when you're reading it, but it's also not matte. There's a little bit of a sheen to it. So that's probably what I'm going to go with. I don't want it. Thanks, Christine. That's actually a cover. That's a cover of issue 2. I don't want it to be super heavy feeling. I'm not going to go with like 80-pound or 70-pound paper. I don't want these heavy, thick. I want them to be floppy. I want them to feel like comic books.
Right.
So I'll probably go more like a 60-pound on the interior and maybe a 70 or 80 gloss on the cover. So that it has a nice traditional, slightly flimsy comic book feel.
So how do you pull that off with a lighter paperweight and still maintain those rich colors without there being like bleed between The front.
The lighter, yeah, the paperweight doesn't really, the bleed, the weight of the paper doesn't really determine the bleed. It's more the glossiness of the paper, the slickness of the paper. So in other words, paperweight just determines how thick it feels. You know what I mean? Like how substantial and how much bend there is to it. But as far as the bleed goes, the porousness of the paper is what determines that. And newsprint is much more porous, you know what I mean, than coated paper because it's uncoated.
Yeah.
Satin has a light coating. Gloss has even more coating on it. They call it hot press paper. So the heavier the coating, obviously, the sort of cleaner and shinier and less bleed there will be. The less coating there is, the more bleed there will be. That's why when you read a newspaper, it just looks like garbage, right? Because it's just everything's just all over the place. So, but I don't like when I did my graphic novel Claiborne, it was on pretty heavy glossy paper. That's why it weighs a pound. And I really want these to feel like comic books. Like I want them to, not newsprint, but I want them to have that nice, bend that when you read a comic book that it has,
Yes.
And graphic novels don't feel like that. I like graphic novels, nothing against graphic novels. I've done them, but they don't have that feel. There's a nostalgia attached to floppies, and if I'm going to go to the trouble to do 6 floppies like this and offer this to people, I'm assuming they're going to want a little bit of that nostalgia feel when they open it up. It's what you get with an Alterna comic, because he still prints on newsprint and everything, and he sells floppies, and I know his newsprint's higher quality than what we got in the 80s. I don't know if it could handle this richness of color. I don't know. I've had some people suggest it. Billy Tucci suggested it, that I talked to Pete about it. Pete actually mentioned it, but I'm just not sure. I'd have to see what James's colors would look like on newsprint.
I'd be interested in seeing like a test page to see how it would come across on today's newsprint.
Right. But I mean, truth is, I'll probably go satin. That's what I'm leaning towards. See you beyond time. Thanks again for backing the book. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so very much. Appreciate it. Hell yeah. Let me see.
What did she say about Pete? She says,
Pete has some great binders for comics. That's where my war party is going to live after I've read them.
Oh, okay, cool. All right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Trying to avoid digging into all the images you've posted. I want surprises, lol.
I really haven't posted that many images. I mean, I've seen some campaigns that they give you like half the book.
And some of them give you 10, 15 pages.
Yeah, and it's funny because Patrick Thomas Parnell recommended that I put more interior pages in here. He goes, you can make them real small, like thumbnails, so people can't read them, but his suggestion was you need to show people that you've got a lot of this done, because that might be what people are worried about, is they don't know how much of this is finished. I was like, yeah, I mean, I see his point, but at this point, I'm about to hit my goal. At this point, I don't know if it makes that much of a difference now, but I don't know.
I mean, you could do something like that. I mean, you don't want to go overboard. Of course.
Yeah, if you scroll down, you see where I did the montage. Right. I show a lot of interior pages on that montage, so I don't know. I felt like that was enough, but
I mean, alternatively, you could just simply state I'm somewhere on the main page, I'm 25 or 40% through the.
I do in the facts page, but I guess people don't read that. The facts where it's like, commonly asked question. No one seems to read that.
Well, I mean, I'll often go to it, but I often notice that a lot of people's campaigns don't even use it. It's just got the generic FAQs provided by Indiegogo about what is crowdfunding and those basics. I rarely see anyone actually add to it. I'll find it every now and again, but most people don't seem to be using it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be opposed to them using it.
It's there.
Yeah, exactly. I can only compare new comics to back issues. but the newspaper wouldn't hold the colors you have if it's the same as newsprint in back issues.
I guess she's referring to Alterna. I'm not sure.
Possibly, or just the generally speaking.
Well, I know Pete does color books though. They're not all black and white. So
yeah. It looks
but
like
I don't know what kind of color they do. His color is like how involved the colors are, how many gradients and things like that.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I haven't checked because I want the experience of looking at the art the first time I hold it. Yeah. And really digging into the detail like we were with this image. I mean, you pointed out a lot of things to me that I had not even noticed. I didn't catch it. And it's a trip now that I know what to look for.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's all sorts of blending modes in Photoshop, like overlay and screen and stuff like that, that allow you to sort of blend colors that way. Hard light is another one that works really well. Yeah, it's called hard light. They're just different blending modes on the layers in Photoshop.
Oh, okay.
All these colors, as far as I know, use Photoshop to color. I mean.
All right. Floppies? Yes, floppies. Traditional comic book format. Each issue is 22 to 30 pages of story and art. All 6 issues will be shipped together in one Gemini mailer for $10 domestic. That's a good price.
Yeah, and I've weighed them and checked the postage and all, and it's perfectly adequate to pay. $10 is plenty to cover the cost of the mailer and the postage.
Are each of the issues bagged and boarded?
Yes.
Right.
The thing is, if I were to ship them individually, that'd be a different story. And that would be cost prohibitive because you'd be paying as much for the shipping of each book as the book costs, or more. It wouldn't make any sense. So this is why floppies don't make sense with crowdfunding unless you bundle them together. If you send them individually, it's crazy. That's why when Marvel used to do their subscriptions, I don't know if you ever got them, but they would ship them in a newspaper a brown newspaper envelope that didn't even have a top or a bottom on it. It was just a sleeve with your address on it, and the comic book slid into it.
Oh my gosh! No, I don't think I ever got those.
Yeah, in the 80s, you know how you could subscribe to all Marvel's books and have a little subscription in the back. You could subscribe to all of them if you wanted to. That's how I had a friend that got them in the mail, and they were delivered like magazines, but they had like I said, a brown paper sleeve wrapped around it with your label, and that's it. You pull it out of the sleeve. There's your comic book. This thing's being handled by the postman and thrown in your mailbox, and because Marvel knew. They weren't going to spend money on nice envelopes to ship it to you. It was too expensive. They were shipping you a $75 or 75-cent comic book, right? So it made no sense to be packaging this thing really nicely. So even back in the 80s, they weren't shipping these things right because it was too expensive.
Yeah, I remember in the comics when I was actively collecting, present amongst the various ads and stuff was like a whole page where it would have, order these issues and have all these check boxes. But yeah, wow. I'm just thinking about how mail and packages are handled these days.
Yeah, you got to protect stuff. You have to protect stuff. Like Scout Comics and Alterna are smart when they ship. They have those bundles. They're kind of like what you use for the pets, a bark box, where like it's like a bunch of goodies. How they'll pack, they'll bundle a bunch of comics together, a bunch of floppies together, and put stickers and swag in there and ship them out. And people subscribe to that. That makes sense because then you're getting a bunch of books. They're protected. So I'm kind of doing that with this, I guess you could say, by sending all 6 together, making people wait, for the whole thing, and that way they can read the whole series at their leisure. They can read an issue a month if they wanted to. They don't have to read it all right away. You can read issue 1, 2 weeks later, read issue 2.
Oh yeah, for sure. Let's see here. I haven't bought anything from Pete yet, as the shipping is prohibitive for a floppy.
For floppies, yeah.
But I was talking about newsprint paper as opposed to satin pages. I have no recent newspaper comics.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, satin's probably what I'm going to end up doing. It just makes the most sense. Glossy, I don't have a problem with glossy interiors, but I just think high gloss interiors, I don't know, it doesn't always look right. The glare, and
Yeah,
I'm trying to emulate a little bit more of the traditional comic book without going full newsprint, if you know what I mean.
right.
You know, and satin's probably a good compromise. It's an in between.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a good decision. I think it would look kind of awkward in a really glossy finish.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it doesn't. I don't know. There's something there. I'm not crazy about matte, so to speak, where it's just totally flat. But there's something about just a slight gloss, but not going too far.
Oh, sure.
That I think works with this, especially this type of artwork and coloring.
Yeah. Christine has something coming of the alternate campaign, but don't have them yet.
This must be from the Because You Demanded It campaign?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
'Cause that's a hell of a campaign. I like what they're doing there. You'll get a big old batch of comics because
smart.
these stretch goals have been reached.
Yeah. He's always one step ahead, it seems. In the
Yeah.
industry. He jumped ship on Diamond at just the right time. You know, like
Yeah.
I felt like
Seriously. I don't think we had delivery for comics when I was young. We had to go to the news agent or comic shops.
Yeah, Marvel had subscriptions back in the 80s. You could subscribe to one title or all of them if you wanted to. They'd give you a discount, obviously, the more titles you would subscribe to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Excuse me. Then you break down the team, you and the colorist. Warriors of Plasm.
Do you remember that?
Actually, no.
That was I think that was that Jim Shooter's book? I think it was.
Do you literally have? Oh, all right. I thought these were all hyperlinks for a second there. I was about to say, well, you went through all the effort of linking to all the.
It was. Warriors of Plasm was Jim Shooter's launched universe when he launched Defiant Publishing when he left Marvel. That's what that was. Yeah. Yep. So that would have been what, early 90s when he left. When did he leave Marvel? It's probably like, it was pre-Tom DeFalco. So that might have been late 80s. Yeah. Yeah, so you see, got the sample pages. So, but some people don't think it's enough. They're like, "Wow, I still want to see more." But that's from various issues too, issues 1, 2, and 3. So it's not even just issue 1. And
I think it's enough, actually.
Yeah, I do too, honestly. But I mean, I understand the point he was making about it would probably help to show that you've gotten a lot of the work done just because of the sheer size of the book being 140 pages. People want to know you're really well on your way with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the cover. Actually, that's going to be a wraparound for issue 4. So I'm thinking about expanding it and making that actually the back cover and continuing the art to the right and putting Diane in there, my shaman, in her deer form. She's a deer. Her spirit animal is a deer. So she's a were-deer. And it's funny because I wanted to give her antlers, but it's like, oh, she's a female, and antlers, only male deer have antlers. So I looked it up, and that's actually not true. Some female deer have been known to have antlers. So it's not always the case. I was like, I got out of that one because I was like, okay, give her, because see this, she just look very interesting with just like a were-deer face and body, but no, you got to have the antlers, or this doesn't look like a deer.
Are they pretty big? Or do they?
Yeah, they grow. Yeah, they grow. They've in some cases have been known to grow just as big as the male's antlers, and you would never know. I mean, just by looking at them, you think they were a male deer, but they're females.
Okay. Yeah, Christina agrees.
I mean, I could be overthinking this anyways. I mean, people are turning into beasts. I mean, what does science have to do with any of it? It doesn't. But you get my point. It would be like if a woman was turning into a lion, would you give her a mane, right? Well,
right.
Only male lions have so.
True.
But both the two most important football teams in North Florida are represented. You've got the Gator, and you've got down about the Jaguar. So, college and NFL both represented.
That's why you chose them, for the sport.
Well, I mean, you can't live in Florida and not, I mean, Gators are everywhere.
Yeah.
And of course, with the Jaguars football team, but and the Aztecs had a warrior called a Jaguar. That would was called a they'd wear the skins and all and fight, but they call them Jaguars.
Oh yeah, here's the
cartoony clouds. There you go. See, generally how I draw clouds, but and you can see how much bigger they get. I mean, they're about twice the size of a human being. You see him holding the British dude there.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh man.
The French soldiers are all cussing in French.
Nerd. Nerd.
That is a howitzer. Those are short-barreled cannons.
Oh wow.
Yeah, mountain howitzers. They were easy to transport because they weren't as heavy. So a lot of times in mountainous terrain or wilderness terrain, they would haul those things around instead of full-size cannons.
Rage.
Yeah, and there's a prime example of the colorist making an artistic decision. I mean, obviously, there's no red lights, or why is it red? Well, it's red because it's an intense moment.
Yeah.
So it's sort of abstract, and I like that. We used to see that a lot more in colors in comics in the 80s.
Yeah, true.
Kind of, I don't know if it's fallen out of fashion or if it's come back or not, but that's what's good about comics. You wouldn't do that necessarily in a movie, because they'd be like, why is everything turning red? But in a comic book, the reader will buy it and go, it's red because it's the emotion of what's happening. It's not red because the woods actually turned red, right? I mean, we know that when we look at it. So there's something really only comics can do,
Yeah, it just makes sense. It reminds me of Kill Bill.
Right.
There was that scene where whenever they kick on that music, like an alarm, and it goes red.
Yeah, I mean, you can do it in movies, but it's pretty impressionistic when you do it. I mean, the audience knows what you're doing.
Yeah.
But in a realistic kind of setting, like, I mean, obviously, like a movie like Last of the Mohicans or something, or it wouldn't work. But it's something like a Tarantino movie, of course, or Creep Show, where they cut to the comic book thing. It's all colorful, and it can work in those situations.
Right.
But comics just seem to do it naturally, and you don't even really think about it.
Yeah, for sure.
It's the same reason why you can drop out the background. How you don't always have the background behind them. It's a close up, it's just color sometimes.
Yep. And it just seems so natural, and it's not like you have to explain it either. You just catch it.
You just accept it, right?
Yep.
Yeah, accept it, and that's one of the strengths of the medium.
Sure. Antlers are cool, so it's a moot point.
Yeah, that is true. If something is cool, people will let it go. They definitely will let it go. They'll let plot holes go. They'll let inconsistencies go.
Yeah.
Because you're enjoying it so much you don't care.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
You know?
It's entertainment. It's escapism. That scene just screams rage and anger.
Oh, and that's her face. You can see a little bit of her face there, in her.
In your antlers.
Yeah, and there she is right there, on the top left, and then the bottom right. He goes back to find out what she is because he doesn't know what she is. He just sees this creature. He spares her life. His father's about to kill her, and he tells the father that he doesn't see her, even though he does. And he returns that night, and that's when he sees her transform back to her human form and realizes, okay, this is a human. This is a human. She's not just some strange creature. So, in the waterfall there, you can see her slowly transforming back.
Yeah. That's really nice. That's really nice. Oh yeah, here's the shot of the transformation from the pelt.
Yeah. Eating him alive.
Yeah.
Poking into his flesh. It's pretty brutal. He's being flogged in this scene, beaten with a whip because he was caught for desertion. So he's actually strapped to a wood cross, being whipped. And on the bottom panel, you can see his back where, it's been flayed. And, of course, the pelt is going into his flesh. And see, all those wounds will heal up. His hands are growing back, his fingers are growing back, and that panel above it. And they're all just looking on like they don't believe what they're seeing. They're just in shock. Like, what is going on?
Man, such coolness.
And the heavyset guy on the lower left, he's one of my main protagonists. He's a lieutenant colonel in the British Army, and he's part of the group that calls the truce between the French and the British to take on the war party, because he sees the transformation, he witnesses it, so he knows what's going. He has an idea what's happening here, and he realizes that if we're going to beat these guys, we're going to have to stop fighting temporarily, just temporary truce with the French army. Let's team up and take them out. So this creates enemies of both sides as far as the war party is concerned.
Yeah,
he just wants his daughter back. This is a pissed off dad saying, "Give me my kid back." There's no greater, and I mean, his wife, by the way, was murdered and scalped. His whole family was wiped out. The only person left is his two brothers, the bear and the eagle, and his daughter. That's it. The rest of his family's gone. So, and by this point, he's had such a bad week. It's like at this point, the readers are like, I'm ready for this guy to get some comeuppance. Like, he's, when you see a character get abused so much that you're dying to see them get revenge. You just can't wait. Like the movie Braveheart was like that, when they slashed his wife's throat, and all that. Yeah. And when he comes back into camp and he's got his hands out, I remember watching that movie going, I can't wait to see this guy just kick some ass. Like, I can't wait to see it, and then when he reaches and pulls that thing out and just cracks the guy in the face, it's on. You're like, yes. It's the same thing with the old Hulk TV show. Remember when they'd throw Banner into like a gravel pit or something and beat the crap out, and you're just waiting, I'm like a 5-year-old kid. I was like, okay, he's coming. His eyes turn, you're like, yes, come on, and then he hulks out, and it's such a great feeling,
I love that. I love that series.
So there's lots of moments like that in this. So maybe the Hulk TV show is part of my inspiration.
Original poster art, 17 by 22 inches. Nice size. Only one of its kind. Pencils and Inks by Justin Murphy. Great for any comic art collector.
Christine's going to bed. All right. Thanks, Christine. I appreciate it. It's good seeing you again.
Appreciate your hanging out with us. Stayed as long as I could. So glad I could see you're so close to getting fully funded. Thank you both for the stream. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, there's the original right there. So it's two 11x17 artboards, taped together in the middle. It's a big piece of art. It took a while.
Oh, I'm sure it did. Yeah.
Well, that's it. That's the only original piece.
When you're doing, oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, other than when I get Preston's original oil, or not oil, acrylic, because he did on canvas. So the original, I'm going to put the original up as well as the prints. Nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
Have you already seen what the finished product's going to look like?
I've seen the sketch,
Okay.
his final sketch, but I have not seen the finished painting. But yeah, I know it's going to be awesome because he's awesome. So I'm not worried.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Good night, Christine.
Yeah. When you do the inks, something I've always wondered about inking, like when you lay down the inks, does it pretty much dry almost instantaneously, or does it stay wet for a while?
I don't use Crow Quill or India ink. I use Copics.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, I ink with markers.
And Copics still give you a solid deep black.
Well, yeah, they do, and you got to go back and like you see the trees and everything there. I'll go back sometimes even with a Sharpie and color in, darken it. But the truth is, it only has to be so dark because when you scan it in, you can adjust the levels once you scan it in, and you can darken everything. Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Especially when you convert, because you have to convert it into a bitmap, a completely black and white image with no gradation at all. So there's not even anti-aliasing on the edge of the line art. It is solid black and solid white. Yeah.
Yeah, I've always been concerned and wondered how artists handled it. Like when you're putting down the inks, there's so much detail and there's so much ink involved that I keep worrying that if I were doing the same, if I were in the artist's shoes, I would constantly be smearing the ink all over the place because the bottom or the edge of my palm would have a tendency to rest on the paper.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
So all I can think of is smeared ink all over the place.
Yeah, I'm not. It's tricky working with, like, if you're working with India ink and Crow Quill pens, which I know a lot of artists do, and they're great if you're good at it, but it can be messy and you have to be careful because it takes a little while to dry, and you run your hand over the wrong spot, and there it goes, So honestly, I never really liked inking until I got one of these. And went digital. I used to always, Cintiq. I used to always, I used to always hire, like on Claiborne, on my graphic novel, I hired Al Milgrom from Marvel. He used to be an editor there, and he did a lot of artwork there. He did all my inking on that book. I didn't ink myself on that book. It wasn't until I started using a Cintiq and using, Manga Studio Pro and software like that and Photoshop that I started to actually like inking. So I actually prefer inking digitally. This was serious work, right? Because I could have inked that digitally in half the time that it took me to do that. Yeah. So sure. It's for me, it's not efficient. Like I couldn't this book if I were working traditionally. It would take too long.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason why I'm able to get it done at the rate that I have, is because I'm working completely digitally, and it just streamlines the process. I mean, just scanning pages and prepping those scans takes time. People don't realize, I mean, you have 11x17 scanner over there, but when you scan it, it's not done. You've got to go in there and tweak the levels and prep the image to get it prepared for the colorist. But if I'm inking digitally, it's already done. It's ready to go. You know what I mean? So there's some pre-press work that goes in, that's involved with traditional that is a hassle and time consuming. I don't have to buy any more artboards. I don't have to buy pencils. I don't have to buy any more markers. All I need is my Cintiq. You know.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. When you're all right, so when you're using Copics to ink, does it dry really fast? Or
Yeah, they do. They dry almost immediately.
okay, all right.
They dry really fast.
When you're inking traditionally, do you ever have to wear like a special glove, like latex glove or something, to prevent smearing, or do you literally not even need to wear gloves?
No, not really. I mean, I never have. Now, I do wear a glove when I use the Cintiq, because your hand, like the oils from your hand, if you rub your hand across a monitor,
All right.
it'll stick. It doesn't slide. And they sell little light gloves that cover these two fingers and this part of your hand. Yeah, and it's called Smudge Guard, and it enables your hand to glide across the Cintiq screen better, and it also cleans your screen as you're drawing on it, because it's it's like a stretchy fabric, and it's like you're cleaning it as you're drawing. So I wear those all the time for that.
Oh, cool. All right. When you're scanning in like traditional art, do you literally just scan two 11x17s, or do you actually have a flatbed scanner that supports 17x22?
They don't make one that big.
Oh, they don't?
No, as far as I know, the biggest one you can get is 11x17, which I have. It's
Okay.
So what I do in this case is I had to scan one page, scan the other, and then go in Photoshop and line them up, right? For the poster, because the poster art that you see was colored digitally, obviously. So this was scanned, then colored, but it was scanned in halves, and you have to line it up. And the problem is, so if when you lay the boards, even if you think they're perfectly straight, one board might be a little off, like angled, and then you have to rotate the art and make sure it's a pain to get it to line up properly. So that's what I mean. All that stuff's gone when you're digital. You don't have to worry about any of that. But I wanted to have an original piece, so I did it that way.
Yeah, for sure. Add-on perks.
And we talked about the motion comic. Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be cool.
Now that will be delivered a little later. Like, that's obviously not going to be ready when I ship the books. So the books will go out first. When the books are ready, I want people to read the books first anyways. I wouldn't want the motion comic to be their first exposure to the story, if you know what I mean. Because it's the comic book, right? So that'll be delivered a few months later, because that's going to take me a little bit longer to get it finished. I have the first 2 issues animated or shot and done, but that's going to be priority 2, right? The book is priority 1, and obviously that's priority 2.
Absolutely. And on autograph 17x22 poster.
Yeah, and there's the scan once it's been digitally colored and everything.
Cool.
And it's the same size as the original, so I'm having them printed at scale. Not any larger or smaller.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's a streamlined campaign. I kept it simple. I didn't do a lot of swag and extras. But once again, like I said, I like the fact that we're going to be looking at 10K in book sales. And that's really all I'm really selling when you think about it. I'm not really selling anything other than the book.
So I always love when creators take the time to do a feature tier, because it's like best bang for your buck. And it's not going to be the cheapest tier. It's not going to be the most expensive tier. Somewhere in the middle where you get some extra goodies, and it gives you a chance to dive into this world that the artist has created, or the storyteller, and get a complete experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the best buy, just because you're getting 11 comic books basically and a poster for
Yeah,
$50. You can't beat that, right?
yeah, seriously. That's
Of
so
course,
cool.
the basic series, the basic set, the $25 perk is still obviously the most popular, but I just think that's the case generally in crowdfunding in general. The $25 price point is sort of the most affordable, the one people are most likely to pick.
Yep, yep.
But the ratio seems about right. It's about almost 3 times. What is it? Was that one 43? Yeah,
Yeah,
not quite 3 times as many pledges for that as the other one.
Yep. Complete set is the 6 issues autographed.
Yeah, I would have liked to have moved more of the $100, tiers, but when you get $100, it gets a little, and that's getting a little pricey for people. And of course, selling original art, you know how that is. It's that one person. There's not too many people are going to shell out $1,000 for anything. So you got to find that one person, that one collector that says, "Yeah, I want this."
Oh yeah.
And, I honestly didn't expect this one to move on this campaign. I actually would have been surprised if it had been pledged for at this point. But I will say, if I do more follow-up books to War Party and it starts to grow in popularity and readership, that thing will sell eventually. I have no doubt.
Oh yeah, but yeah, no doubt, because it's definitely worth it. All the work put into it. Yeah,
Oh, Critical Blast is here. What's up, Critical Blast? Good to see you.
Welcome. War Party is a fantastic deal, an engrossing concept, and unbelievable art. Yep.
Thank you. It brings up something I've noticed. I don't know what's going on, but werewolves are very popular right now, especially in ComicsGate. I think there's like 10 other books with werewolves right now. And I was just like, you know how it is. You feel when you get an idea and you release something, and there's like 10 other people that are doing something similar, and you're going, oh man. But I looked at the other campaigns, and what's interesting is they're all different. They're all completely different concepts.
Yes.
Like the werewolf's been around forever. There's nothing original about that. We get it. Shapeshifters, all that stuff. Man beast, all that. There's nothing that's not new. But I just found it interesting that even though we were all kind of on the same wavelength and created these things pretty much at the same time, it seems, our take on it is so different. Like mine's in the 1700s. John Malin, is doing like the Universal monsters, right, with the Wolfman. There's a book just launched, Sovereign Wolf. It's almost like a super soldier team, and there's an eagle, and there's a wolf, and there's a bear, but it's modern day as far as I know. They have costume, they have like uniforms, and like it's more like G.I. Joe werewolves, so it's all different takes with sort of the same mythos. So I find it interesting because there's obviously room for everybody. But I just think it's funny. It's like one of those zeitgeist things where, an idea comes to you and you don't realize there's like 100 other people that are doing something similar at the same time, So, I just find it interesting.
It's pretty trippy. Yeah. I love this kinds of stuff that's coming out in CG.
Yeah, it's not just superhero or just, it seems to be it's a mixed bag.
Yeah.
Of a lot of different things. Some of them overlap a little bit in concept, but not so much that there's not room. Like I think the person that would read this would also read those books as well, and vice versa, because they like they like fantasy, or they like, that type of storytelling.
Yeah. One of the funniest things I find in ComicsGate is, I've never been a huge fan of horror or zombies. I like the Universal monsters and stuff, but I was never a huge monster. Well, I guess I like monsters, but not a huge fan of horror in general as a genre. But I liked some of the campy stuff, like Nightmare on Elm Street and
Right. Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
yeah,
That's another great one.
Attack from Mars. But then when more and more I'm finding I'm backing ComicsGate campaigns that include the zombies
Right.
and monsters and horror.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, what's funny about I originally conceived this kind of as a horror book, but it's kind of beyond that. There are horror elements in it, but it's really more of an adventure, like I don't know. I would consider it more of a fantasy adventure, historical fantasy, than horror. Like I said, there's horrific elements, but it's a team of guys trying to save their daughter. I mean, how horrific is that, right? I mean, it's really more like Taken, with werewolves, or with, I don't even want to say werewolves because only one of them's a wolf. This isn't a werewolf story. It's a skinwalker story, if you want to use a more unused term. So yeah, it started off being a little more on the horror side, but I've noticed as I've been writing it, it's become more of an action fantasy type story than a horror story. And that's fine. I mean, stories will evolve the story will tell you what it needs a lot of times. And you might go into something thinking it's one thing, and the story will take you in a slightly different direction. You'll realize, no, it's not what I thought it was. It's really this. This is what it is. I think there'll be opportunities in the future, depending on where I take Diani and what her situation is, to where it could be more of a horror angle in that particular story. Because this is war, soldiers, combat, you know what I mean? It's got more of an adventure vibe to it. I'm noticing than a horror vibe.
Yeah, I'm really digging it. What after you fulfill a war party, what is your next project?
Yeah, I've toyed with the idea of either moving on with the next one. I wouldn't do another miniseries this time, though. I would just do like a one-shot, shorter, 70 to 100 pages max.
Oh, as opposed to like War Party 2 being another 6 issues?
Right, exactly. I just wanted to launch the initial one as a miniseries first. Because even if I reprint this down the line, I'll probably reprint it in a prestige format, most likely. So whoever gets their hands on these, that most likely will be it. Yeah. So it'll be collected at that point in one volume. But the only other thing is I'd considered doing a companion story to my Civil War graphic novel Claiborne that I did back in 2008 about Holt Collier. He was a Confederate Ranger, freed slave at the beginning of the war, who became a Confederate Ranger, cavalryman, and sniper. Yeah. So, and actually, he was the guy that became like the most successful bear hunter after the war. Teddy Roosevelt, the whole teddy bear legend came from. There's a lot of like cool stuff around the story. I can't get into it right now, but my point is, that would be a black and white book. I want to do it in black and white because I love black and white, and I think I wanted to do something, get back to the roots of black and white art. And it'd be a cheap book to produce, obviously, because it wouldn't be in color. Being Civil War, it's a little niche, so I'm not so sure it would attract as many readers as something like this. So it's going to either be a toss-up between that or follow up on War Party. But I'm going to let the audience determine that, because the truth is they'll tell you what they want. I mean, if this does well and in demand, if it just keeps on going full steam ahead, I may not have a choice. I may need to immediately go into the sequel or the follow-up as soon as possible while people are interested in this. It's one thing that I thought Ethan did that was smart, is he immediately went on to Wreck Planet with Cyberfrog before going on to Rainbow Brute. Like he because people wanted more Cyberfrog, so he's giving the audience what they want. Even though I think Rainbow Brute might make more money, I really think Rainbow Brute's going to be huge. I think that comic is so funny. The concept's so funny. I don't know. It might outdo Cyber Frog, but you know, you kind of have to let your audience tell you what they want, and it would make sense to build on this because it's already building an audience, right? I mean, you want to keep building on what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I'd be all for, you know, following this up. And it's like John Malin says, his philosophy: overprint slightly, release your sequel, and then now you have all these overprinted of your previous book that the people that buy the sequel are also going to want to read. So now they're going to pledge for your sequel. They're also going to pledge for your older books. So you can package them all together, and then that's when you're making real money, because now you're selling stuff that's already been printed, already been made, and you're just moving merchandise at that point. So I like that model. I mean, it makes sense, you know.
Yep. Absolutely. That's a hell of a trip. I'm loving it. I love this book, and looking forward to it succeeding. 96% of 10,000 flexible goal. 10 days left. And this was, I'm sorry, refresh my memory. Was this set up as a 60-day funding?
It was set up as a 30, and 30. It broke 6,000 right before 30 ended. So I was confident that if I extended another 30, I'd hit my goal. And I actually did it on Pete's live stream, Pete Smitty's open mic night. We pulled it up and we went boom, and I extended the campaign right there live on his show. Sweet. And sure enough, it was the right decision. But you can see it took me almost, I mean, it's taken me 50 days to hit this number. That's how long it's taken to get there. And so I'm glad Indiegogo allows you to do that.
Certainly.
30 days just isn't enough. It's not, you don't get enough press or coverage in 30 days sometimes to get it done. You know, especially a $10,000 goal, which I know is rare. Most people don't set their goals that high. That's usually 5,000 or less, I've noticed.
Yes, that's true. A lot of people are new creators and they don't have the extensive background like people such as you. You know, being a professional in the comics industry for so long.
Yeah, I'm sure that helped. I mean, you know, there's a credibility factor that people had to do their research, I think, and find out about me first. And then once they were comfortable, then they were like, okay, I'll give this book a chance. Now I'm going to do this. So that's the only reason why I think it's been able to do this, because I knew this was going to be a challenge. I did not go into this thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to make, $30,000-$40,000 in the first 3 weeks. I knew that wasn't going to happen. I mean, unless you are a featured guest on Ethan's show or something at that level, you're not doing those kind of numbers. It's not going to happen. So at least not in your initial launch. Maybe in demand it can happen eventually, but those numbers are not realistic usually. So I knew that 10,000 was sort of the limit of what I realistically thought was going to happen in a campaign like this, and it proved to be correct. I mean, it's looking like I made just the right guess, like just the right threshold.
Oh yeah.
It couldn't have been more on, because you're only talking 10 days left, and I'm just barely getting under the radar. You see,
Yeah.
Like if I still had to raise $2,000 right now, I'd be worried, But the fact that I'm so close now that it's inevitable. So yeah, it worked. It worked. As far as I can say, I consider it successful. Could it have done more? Sure. Maybe I should have done a little more promotion on the front end, like I said. But once it's in demand, it can. There's no stopping what it could potentially do if I keep promoting it.
And then, so you've been on, obviously this show. You've been on Peter Simeti's. You've been on Raging Golden Eagles channel. Have you been on a whole lot of streams over the course of the last?
Critical Blast, Michael Bancroft twice, Sweetcast with Clint,
Cool.
Patrick Parnell's show,
Good.
Riot Productions.
Nice.
Yeah,
A lot of good shows then.
yeah, Adam Post.
Oh wow, Adam Post too.
Yeah. Who else?
Maybe Pop XP.
Mystery. Yeah, Pop XP. That was one of the first ones, actually. I think it was the second one I went on. Mystery.
Oh, cool.
Drew. Yeah. I'm trying to think. Is anybody I'm leaving out? Oh, Mandy Summers.
Yeah, Mandy Summers with John.
Yeah. I do have to say that Rage Golden Eagle made the biggest dent. Like that blew up when I went on his show. Pop XP produced some good results. Ethan mentioned it a couple times in passing on his show, and just his mere mention of it got me backers right then. I wasn't even on the show. I was never on his show. But all he has to do is talk about something for 30 seconds or a minute, and you're going to make like $1,000, like right then. You know,
yeah,
it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is. I would have to agree. I definitely have to agree there.
So I wasn't able to ever get on John's show. I tried to get on John Malin's show, but I just think, we just weren't ever able to make it set anything up. Fraga, I wasn't able to get on his show.
Oh man, those are good channels too.
Yeah, those are the only Fraga, Malin, EVS, and Shane Davis are the only sort of like top tier shows I was not able. And Kelsey was we were talking about doing something, but I just just wasn't able to happen right now. It's I don't know what they're doing. They're busy. They're trying to work on their books, and I get it. I mean, nobody has any obligation to have anybody on. Truthfully, it's a privilege to have anybody, invite you on their show. Truthfully, as you know, I mean, everybody wants content, but at the same time, no one's obligated to help anybody promote their books, as we know. So, but I appreciate, they've all been supportive and cool about it and saying good things. And, but yeah, I mean, it definitely, could it have done more? Of course. If I had gotten on some of those shows, it would have done more. I would have hit my goal probably a couple weeks ago, but I'm still going to hit it. And that's what matters. I'm not here going, what am I going to do? I'm $3,000 or $4,000 away, and this is the end of the line. So that's the good news.
Yep.
Mission accomplished, and
heck yeah,
I got to get to work and get back to work. Man, I can't work done doing this campaign. I got to, once it hits 10,000, I can exhale, breathe, and relax. But you know how it is. Until you hit your goal, you can't relax because you're trying to get it done, right? And when it's in demand, you can relax then.
Make sure you got everything covered and all your I's dotted and your T's crossed. Yeah,
but I feel privileged and blessed because I'm telling you, like I said, it's never been lower than page 3 on Indiegogo. Most of the time, it's either been on page 1 or page 2, sitting right next to Cyberfrog. Or not kidding, like every time. And I'm like, how is this thing staying so highly ranked? And the only thing I could figure is because of the consistency of the pledging. I was never really having a huge drought period where it was just plummeting. You know what I mean?
Right.
And just going to the bottom of the list. And that has definitely helped me because, it's important. Obviously, if everyone's competing for those top 2 pages, especially that first page where you don't have to click more. It's right there when you do comics. If you can stay on that first page, man, it makes a big difference.
It does.
Patrick mentioned that to me about my goal being so high. He goes, you ever regret making your goal 10,000? He goes, because when a book goes in demand, the algorithm changes and you tend to sit higher on the you're more visible because you're funded. I was like, yeah. I said, but I had to be realistic. We're talking a 6-issue series. I really need $10,000. I mean, this is an expensive book.
Yeah.
It's 140 pages. So I could have set it at 5, but 5's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
I would have gone for it anyways, but I'd have to go forward out of my own pocket.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I had to be realistic about the goal I was setting.
Yeah, you got it. Otherwise, you shortchange yourself and potentially put yourself in financial strain. Let's go ahead and play the video once more, and we'll wrap it up.
Cool, man.
Everything changed when war reached the Americas. Caught between the French and the British. My family paid the price. Only my darling Sarah survived. They took her away. We couldn't save them, but we will save her. 5 men against thousands, how can it be done? We are not merely men. War has brought out the beast in us all. And we will have our vengeance, for we are the War Party.
Sweet. So cool. Man, I love it. I love it, I'd say. Let's see here. Oops, wrong one. All right. I am going to give you the floor. Please share with the world how you can be found on social media.
Yeah, I am Professor Murf at Rampart Press on Twitter. So Rampart Press, that's my publishing company. And YouTube, Professor Murf is the name of my channel. So if you find the Professor Murf, it's pretty easy.
Cool deal. And you can find me as usual on Facebook and YouTube at WyzGyz Entertainment and on Twitter at WyzGyz Tweets. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Mark the bell for notifications. Indicate that you want to see all notifications, so hopefully you don't miss a single video or stream. And drop any comments down below and share with us what you're most excited about War Party. Thank you to everyone in the chat who joined us today. You guys rock. Thanks to everyone who watches this on replay. And thanks to our very special guest, Professor Murf.
Thank you. I appreciate coming out again.
Oh, it's always an honor to have you. We are going to end the broadcast in 3, 2, 1.
It's the only person below White Holiday in the ComicsGate phone book. It's my favorite failed clone of Peter Sameti. The YouTube WyzGyz. How you doing, Conrad? Welcome to the show.